Well, hello there and welcome. Welcome to everyone. My name is Kevin Durgeon and I'm a London-based acupuncturist and also a broadcaster with UK Health Radio. I'm so happy and also very honoured to be your host today. We're here to celebrate 15 years of Singing Dragon. And to mark this very auspicious event, we're hosting 4 1-hour discussion forums where we're going to hear from some of the leaders in our complementary health community. And it's our sincere hope that these events will help to deepen your understanding of differing health modalities and also to discover some new insights about what the future might hold for professional disciplines in complementary health. Hello to everyone. Thank you so much for popping your details into the chat box. It's great to see so many people here today. Today's discussion topic will be the whole person approach. It's going to be a cross-disciplinary conversation on pain and the alternatives to opioids. And we're going to spend some time exploring how yoga and Chinese medicine both go beneath the skin to ease suffering, to ease pain, and why we need to pay attention to nourishing our spirit as well as our body, and the vital role that our communities have on our health and our healing. Now, this is a live 1-hour event. Please do use the chat box to say hello. We'd love to find out who's joining us today because we really want today's session to be part of building a sense of a greater community of wellness all around the world. We've also programmed in plenty of time for your questions, so please do pop them in to the Q&A box. This session really does come alive, or rather it really will come alive as a result of all of your feedback and all of your questions and all of your comments. Now, a couple of little bits of housekeeping. If you use subtitles or closed captions, please click on the CC icon, which is along the bottom of the screen. Now, if you're using a mobile device, this will be along the top. All you need to do is to click onto the CC and then press Show Subtitles. I'm also very happy to say that we're recording this event and we'll be sending this out to you later on this week. Now, what I would love to do, in addition to saying hello to some of our wonderful new friends, Linda Trevathan, hello from sunny Staffordshire, hello Caroline Williams, hello Julie Weeks, and gosh, we've got so many people here. Hello to everyone. What I would like to do is I would love to start to take the global temperature in our global room today. And we're going to kick things off with a speed fire poll. So your task, if you wish to accept it, is to answer this poll in 20 seconds or less. So for most of us, this poll will now have popped up onto the screen automatically. Don't worry if it doesn't, it's just a device compatibility thing. So ready, steady, complete that poll. And for those of you who aren't able to see it, the question is, what field of study falls most in line with your current profession? Chinese medicine and acupuncture, yoga therapy or yoga, bodywork? Are you a conventional healthcare provider or are you another? So I think that now brings us to the end of that poll. So let's see what we have in our answers. So the majority of people here are, like me, into Chinese medicine and acupuncture. We have 26% of participants are here from a yoga background. Welcome and thank you so much for joining us. We have 2% of bodywork practitioners, 5% of conventional healthcare practitioners, and a healthy 26% of people involved in other disciplines. I'm just absolutely thrilled that you're here joining us today. Thank you. Now, it is the moment that we, of course, have all been waiting for and why we're all here. Let's now meet our very special guests. So when I reveal your name, could you please reveal yourselves and unmute? So I'd first of all like to introduce C.T. Holman. C.T. Holman, hello there, is an internationally renowned speaker and a teacher of Chinese medicine with over 20 years of experience in practice. He is the author of Treating Emotional Trauma with Chinese Medicine and also Shamanism in Chinese Medicine. Welcome to you, C.T. Holman.
Thank you so much, Kevin. It's such an honor to be here with you, Matt, Claire, and everyone from all over the world celebrating Singing Dragon.
We're going to have some fun today. Thank you, CT. Now, our next guest is Dr. Matthew J. Taylor. Matthew is the past president of the International Association of Yoga Therapists. He's a physical therapist and a yoga therapist himself with over 35 years of guiding patients, healthcare professionals, and himself through pain. And Matthew is the author of Yoga Therapy as a Creative Response to Pain. Welcome to our program, Matthew Taylor.
Thank you, Kevin. Good to be with all of you from the heart of the USA in Iowa, and congratulations, birthday publisher.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you so much. Now, our final panelist today is Claire Wilson. Hello, Claire. Claire is editorial director at Singing Dragon, and she commissions across the areas of acupuncture and East Asian medicine, yoga therapy, graphic medicine, and nutrition. Now, Claire Wilson joined Singing Dragon in 2014. And prior to this, she was commissioning editor at Elsevier Publishers, where she managed its complementary medicine list. Welcome, Claire Wilson.
Thank you, Kevin. Welcome, everyone. It's great to be here.
It's absolutely wonderful. And what a splendid turnout we have. Hello to everyone. Now, I'd like to kick off today's discussion with you, Claire Wilson, if I may. Why was it important for you that we held this event?
Well, it felt important to us to mark and celebrate 15 years of our publishing, and also to celebrate the connection that our work's part of. I think the connection between author and publisher and community is like a circle, and we really wanted to celebrate the power of that circle. There's also, I think, a warmth and a heart that's at the center of what we do. And our close team here is part of a bigger close team, which everyone in the call is part of as well. So this event's really about shining a light on connections, I think, and about weaving conversations between the different areas that we publish in. So this will hopefully allow us both to get together and also to learn from each other. We're going to have 4 events in total this year, as I think you mentioned, Kevin, and we've chosen the topics very carefully so that they're dynamic and they allow cross-disciplinary conversations to take place and to help join the dots, because sometimes the place where we join the dots is the exciting place where the magic happens.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so this event today is on the whole person approach to pain, and you'll find out a bit later in the programme about the second event. So I'll just talk for a minute, I think, about the subjects that we publish in Singing Dragon, so everyone's aware. So Singing Dragon was started by Jessica Kingsley, and it started off largely as a Chinese medicine, Taoism and martial arts publisher. And Jessica set up an amazing list, and that's sort of evolved and expanded over the years, while I think still retaining its identity and its standing in those original areas. So we publish a lot of books on acupuncture and Chinese medicine, but we also have a large and growing list of books in yoga and yoga therapy and body work, and also in aromatherapy and nutritional therapy and fertility and birth. And also we have a graphic medicine series called the Really Strange series, which explores areas such as pain, trauma, anxiety, forgiveness, and also touch. And actually the latest book in that series, Touch is Really Strange, published yesterday. So we're celebrating that as well today. So we publish a really broad range of books and ebooks and audiobooks and online resources. And our list covers from practitioner handbooks to student textbooks to workbooks, colouring books, and card sets. So it's very broad. We also always take an international approach at Singing Dragon, and our authors are authored by our books are authored by experts from across the globe for all of the international communities that we reach.
Wonderful. Well, Claire, thank you so much for allowing the space for this wonderful event to happen today. And hopefully we really are going to spark some wonderful ideas together as a community. So thank you. Now, the main focus of today's discussion is the opioid crisis. And I'd now like to turn to Matthew Taylor and to C.T. Holman. How has the opioid crisis manifested over the past 15 years from your perspective? And where are we today? And I'd love to hear you talk a little about the relevance of this crisis to your work. So Matthew, if we could start with you.
Sure, and Claire set me up beautifully. She talked about connection and weaving, and of course, yoga is the idea that it's all connected. It's not all the same, but it's all connected, right? And so what I think has been fascinating over the last 15 years, Kevin, is that the development of yoga has continued to grow. It's not static, and it's not a fixed thing. And so that's been fun to watch because, you know, a lot of us have the misconception of yoga as stretching or yoga as postures and those sort of things. And what we're doing in yoga therapy is of course trying to bridge the understanding that no, it's much more, and really it's about trying to identify the sources of suffering. And when we look at the sources of suffering, it's not so much the what we would see in conventional medicine as, you know, tight hamstrings or a bum elbow or those sorts of things. It looks at what's the deeper thing. And I think that's where we get to what Claire was just mentioning, the connections and the weave of everything. Because now along with modern science, we learn more of what yoga truly is, and it's understanding those bigger problems. And so when we look at the opioid crisis, and I always try to couch it a little differently, is that the opioid crisis is actually a pain crisis that has a symptom of opioid abuse. And so it's the idea that our society, our connection and our weave is not supporting people in pain properly. And so yoga, if you're supposed to discern what's real or what's reality, would ask, well, what are the things going on that generate this pain? And what we've learned in the last 5 years with pain science is that sure enough, it's what both the yogis and the Chinese medicine practitioners have said. It's a flow of energetic connection, real energy, physics energy, as well as subtle energies. And we don't have to step back from that anymore. But we also at the same time are marching with modern science. And so I'm on 2 different pain task forces in the US. And what we're looking at is, how do we change policy? How do we change the structures and the systems that have become so apparent of pain and suffering? And that's this connection. So it's been fun to watch it go from stretching on a rubber mat to looking at multinational relationships and the environment and everything else. And so that's the connection, or the weave, as Claire put it. So
marvelous. Thank you, Matt. And how about you, CT? What's your perspective on the opioid crisis?
Well, I think it's just like Matt was saying, that connection, the weaving of how we look at the body as being connected with the body, mind, and spirit, and how we look at that part. And like Matt said, in terms of the classics in Chinese medicine, there's disease when there's blockage. If there's flow, there's no longer disease. And so it's the idea of getting things to move and to open up. And so it's something that, for thousands of years, Chinese medicine has been talking about in terms of pain. But, historically, the solution was give a pain pill if somebody has pain. And, you know, at least in the United States, they found that, you know, in 2015, 16, they were really doing a lot of studies on this and found that so many people are getting addicted, and there was a lot of problem with addiction, but also people dying from the opioid use, and trying to find out non-pharmacological solutions for this. And, you know, like Matt said, with science, we have this beautiful integration now where we can use modern science to understand how these ancient arts work. And they've been able to prove, you know, acupuncture, yes, does work for pain, does help with the opioid withdrawal symptoms, and helping people to not have the substance abuse aspect. And, you know, through all of this, the FDA and the College of Physicians in the United States, at least, recommended that acupuncture being one of the first line defenses for treating pain, especially for like low back pain. And this spurred a whole lot of legislation that the United States now, for Medicare and Medicaid, the two major insurances for senior citizens, now offers acupuncture for treating low back pain, which is awesome. And in Oregon, the state that I live in, by 2022, all private insurance has to cover acupuncture for up to 12 visits. So this is some real great progress that's happening. But it's like Matt said, we have to look at what's the core issue here. It really, you know, we do have the opioids, we have to work on that for sure, but it's also looking at how do we incorporate the whole body, the spirit, into the medicine.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now, I'd like to dive in a little bit deeper and to hear from each of you about how yoga and Chinese medicine can actually help alleviate people's pain and their suffering on a wider scale. And I'd like to hear a little bit about your approaches and how you treat people in your own discipline. So let's start off with you, Matt.
Well, the way we approach it as a yoga therapist is to listen and learn from the person what we call their superficial suffering is. It might be a backache or whatever, but then through processes of looking inward, sensing, feeling who they are, and then beginning to move and move the breath, those kind of things we think about as yoga. What that does is it quiets the nervous system so that they can move to their higher mind, their higher capacity to begin to gain insight. And so it's that insight that says, oh, maybe my backache has something to do with the fact that I hate to go to work, or, you know, my neighbor's driving me crazy, whatever it is, but then successive layers after that. And so it's the peeling the onion. We peel the onion of yoga, and we use the technology. So it might be breath work, it might be postures, it might be mantras, you know, repeating sound, those types of things. But what's interesting is it's very different, Kevin, from the perspective of conventional medicine, in that we're saying the answer lies within. It's not, I don't have the answer as a yoga therapist, but I create an environment that's safe where you can begin to explore. And that's that creativity aspect that we really, and that's now what we understand for societal health, is it's got to come from the local, the inside. And that's, so as people discover that, if we have capacity as yoga therapists, we keep providing more and more environments that way. But if it's something beyond that, then we work with the broader healthcare team as would be appropriate if they have other issues that need support. So we don't operate in isolation. It's again part of that weave, part of that connection, right? And so that gives you a little insight into what we do as yoga therapists to support these people with pain.
It's those words again, weave and connections, weaving. I sense a theme coming through today's session. I sense a theme. So now CT, how does what Matt has been talking about, how does that resonate with you and your take and your approach?
Well, it resonates wonderfully. I mean, the number one about integration, absolutely. I think it's wonderful that we have this opportunity. We live in a beautiful time right now. We have access to so many different modalities, yoga, Chinese medicine, Western medicine, chiropractic, all these, and people can use those all together, which is that weaving aspect. But I want to echo something that Matt said, I think is really important. I completely believe what he was saying about creating a space and being a guide. it's not that we as practitioners are really doing it, it's the patient is doing it. We're providing that ability for them to walk their path fully and to be able to, nurture their destiny, be who they really are meant to be, see their full potential. And when we say Chinese medicine, just for some people who are, tuning in, and a lot of us know it incorporates many things. It's not just acupuncture, but it's also herbal medicine, it's qigong, it's drumming. I mean, I love using the drum, it's a huge part of my practice actually. And it's another way to create that space and to give people multiple ways to really look at their situation and what's happening for their root of their pain. Like Matt said, it might not be necessarily like a strained ligament, or, I mean, it could be that, but it also could be a emotional component, something else that's part of that. And, through these different modalities, it can really help them to shine. I mean, Qigong is so effective, and it works similar to how yoga is, I believe, in terms of working like a top-down, bottom-up approach, working from the, the body aspect, but also working from that mental aspect, and tuning into those parts of the medicine. And for me, Qigong, the Qigong I use is from Master Zhang Shenwu, who's also a author on Singing Dragon. And from my understanding, worked with Jessica to actually create the imprint. So I really want to celebrate Master Wu today too, because he was a big part of getting Singing Dragon going and introducing me to Singing Dragon, because the first books I read on Singing Dragon were Master Zhang Shenwu's. And using that Qigong, I've seen it to be so effective for people. And I know, Matt, we've both talked about this. It's top down, bottom up. And I thought we might just talk a little bit to explain what that means to everyone in terms of using like meditation, but also using like the body. I mean, how would you explain the top down, bottom up?
Sure. Give me the hard one. No,
Well,
I'm teasing you. Yeah, so bottom up, literally. So to do asana is to sit. So your bottom is on the ground, okay? And the bottom up then implies paying attention to the information that's coming inward to the person. So both from sensory, from the body parts, but also it would be hearing, vision, taste, scent, all of those. So there's that flow coming up that our system beautifully negotiates and interprets. But then at the top, there's this capacity, if we're not in a state of fight or flight, to then understand and relate and tell a story about, and then respond or act in response. So the top gives direction down as to next steps. And so, it's not two separate things. It's going all the time. We're all doing it right now as we're participating in this. So yeah, so you can look at those different things of a stretch giving a sensation up, or chanting a favorite prayer or something that means something as a calming downward to quiet the system. So that's how I do it. How about you, CT? I'm sure you've got a great way to describe it.
Well, out of it a great way, but a similar way that you're saying, like with Qigong, same thing. We get, we do 3 treasure Qigong. So we're working with the Jing, Qi, and Shen. So the Jing is like the physical, the form. What are you doing with your body? What's your movement? And then the Qi is your breath. So coordinating with your movement with that breath. And then the Shen is really, what are you thinking about? That's that, when the mind is quiet, helping you to coordinate with the body and, visualize. We do different visualizations. So right now, this is a really auspicious day, by the way, to be doing this talk, because it's Earth Day, which is all about connections and helping the people and helping, the planet. But it's also in the month of the dragon. So that's kind of an auspicious time for Singing Dragon. We're in the month of the dragon right now. But, we can visualize like seeing that green dragon of the east rising up and seeing that birth energy, that springtime energy, while you are doing a movement. It really, like Matt said, everything's happening at once. You're coordinating that. And even with the drum, when I do the drumming, same thing. People are feeling that resonance in their tissue, in their body, in their organs, but they're also connecting with the spirit of Mother Earth and Father Sky. So it is, again, that weaving, like you're saying, Kevin, we really are seeing those connections.
I'd like us now to focus a little bit on this word spirit that both of you have used, and also you, Claire. We've all used it today. Often when we're discussing pain, for example, I've got lower back pain, I've got a terrible neck, I've got a headache. We often forget about the mind and the spirit, and we just focus on the body. Why is it important from your perspectives that we incorporate all three, the body, mind, and the spirit, when we're looking to help people suffering? Matt, over to you. Over to you, Matt.
Me again. All right. So yoga isn't a physical practice historically. It's a psycho-spiritual practice. And by spirit, one of the task forces, we've just written this amazing paper for policymakers that spiritual pain care is a significant part of pain care. And by spirit, we mean what has meaning, purpose, and value for a person. It's not about religion. Religion can be involved in it, but it's really about what has value, meaning, and purpose. And what we're learning in pain science, and what the yogis and the rishis have told us forever and ever, is if there isn't a story of value and purpose and meaning, the individual and the society doesn't thrive. And I think that's a lot of what we're seeing right now as the world marches through its automaton, being cogs in a consumerist, materialist society that's destroying the environment, part of another weave, right? And so consequently we hurt, and pain is the spiritual call to make change. It's the kick in the hind end. It's whatever Shiva with his trident in your backside, something calling us to make a change and make a shift. And so that aspect in yoga therapy is we create the environment where the person can reflect, and then we have a whole series of yamas and niyamas that ask and invite inquiry into, does your life have meaning and purpose, and are you living in integrity with that? And I think CT is going to tell us a very similar story.
Are you CT? Are you CT? Come on then, let's hear from you.
I like the trident part. I like that part of the story. So, yes, absolutely. The idea of purpose, I think that is a huge aspect. And that, idea of when there's some kind of physical symptom that happens, it is a calling to kind of reorient yourself on your path. I mean, I look at someone on their destiny path, I think there's a little bit of wiggle room. It's not just one tight wire act. There is a little bit of room there, but when you bump up against those sides of your path, you might have pain or some kind of asthma, whatever it is that comes up. And it is trying to get you back on your purpose. And with spirit, the longest time, I had a hard time figuring out, what does spirit even mean, honestly? And in school, we talk about spirit. It just seemed like this ethereal thing I couldn't really visualize. And I've come up lately with an idea that's like just a metaphor for spirit. When you have a light that reflects and refracts through a crystal, it creates this rainbow of colors. And I really think of us, we take in the universal light energy and we embody that universal light energy, and then it shines out through us in our particular rainbow of colors. And when you're fully in your body, when your spirit's fully present, you're going to completely shine. You're going to have your purpose. You're going to be doing what your gifts and talents were and are for the human family. And there's many ways that we in Chinese medicine can actually look at that and evaluate that. One is through facial diagnosis. And so I use the facial diagnostic lineage from Lillian Pearl Bridges. And what we do is we look at the face, and we can look at the different features, colors, lines on the face to understand what's going on with that person's spirit. First of all, is it present? Are the eyes glowing? Is the skin glowing? Then we're seeing, okay, the different features. Somebody has really thick eyebrows. That would mean they're a really good leadership energy. Or someone has a nose that's closer to their face. They're going to work really well in groups. All these things that we can understand. And so, like we were saying before about guiding someone, it's just pointing these things out to someone, say, hey, look, you have these extra talents and abilities, and have them start to embody those and to be able to fully do their destiny and to do what their calling is. And, differentiating those, we have the 5 elements, of course, in Chinese medicine, and how we can look at someone has a little bit more wood energy, a little bit more water energy. And what does that even mean to them? And how can they use that information to better understand their spirit and to help call their spirit back to their body? And, there's many examples in clinic. I'm treating somebody right now who has severe abdominal pain. bouts of pancreatitis. And through acupuncture, they've been able to taper off their opioids, but more importantly, do their purpose, their artwork, their creations. And I mean, Matt, you probably have similar things that you've seen in the yoga studio. And I'm always curious how, in terms of differentiation, you probably differentiate the spirit in a similar way, would you say, or?
Yeah, and some very simple things. When's the last time you had fun?
Right.
What do you do for fun? Okay.
Right.
When's the last time you did it?
Yeah.
What do you ever experience joy? So those being the symptoms of spirit, right? The light, the happiness. Just you can tell with this group, we're very fortunate. We're all appear to be in good health and good spirit, because largely from our practices and a lot of lucky lottery experience too, just of where we were born and how we've been raised. But so when we're sitting with someone, if that energy's down, the face is flat, the eyes are dull, it tells us that very much that kind of a thing. And so homework would be to explore what makes you smile, what makes you sleep deeper, what makes you happy to open your eyes in the morning, and then let's put more of that in.
Put more of that in. Thank you. Now, I just wanted to remind everybody that we've now got a Q&A session coming up. We've got already 6 questions in that Q&A box. So thank you so much for doing that. Also, as a very special thank you for joining us today, if you have a look in chat, we are now pasting a link to a rather special digital goodie bag. And this contains a plethora of wonderful special offers and free content, including exclusive discounts on a certain C.T. Holman and Matt Taylor's book. Thank you so much. As well as 2 extracts from their books and a white paper. So if you'd like to access that, you can now click on the chat function. And we'll also be sharing this link with you at the end. So let's return to our discussion, let's now move on to trauma. Where does trauma fit within our mind, body, and our spirit? And why is it that when we're trying to deal with current physical pain, why do we need to address and understand trauma? Let's go to CT first.
Okay, thank you, Kevin. Yeah, so a lot of times what's happening is trauma can get trapped in the body. And, someone experiences trauma, either, directly experience it, even, seeing images can create trauma, hearing certain stories can create trauma. And, typically if you can, if your body's, if the flow is happening, the trauma is going to come in, you're going to process it and it flows out. But for many of us, I can speak for myself that, we've had trauma, it gets trapped in the body and it can manifest as pain. So like Matt talked in the very beginning, somebody's back pain could be because they had a trauma in the past, or they just don't like going to work, something like this. But that could stem from a deeper trauma that's just still stuck in the body. And we can use Chinese medicine to untangle that. We can use acupuncture, we can use drumming, we can use qigong, we can use herbal medicine. And it helps the body to process. And, in my book, Treating Emotional Trauma with Chinese Medicine, I talk about this, first setting the stage for someone to feel safe. And the first thing is really helping to settle the kind of chaos that's happening. Matt talked about that earlier. When the sympathetic nervous system is really charged, it's hard to even think clearly, let alone start to process an old trauma. So it's first getting things settled, helping to get them to feel nurtured, calm, safe, where then they can start processing that trauma and letting that trauma start to move out. And, I recently had someone in the clinic I was talking to about emotions, and they said, oh, well, emotions are bad. We don't want to feel anger or sadness. I said, well, wait a second. It's okay to feel emotions. That's the human experience. We're going to feel those emotions, but we can look at them as winds. And classically in Chinese medicine, there are these winds that come in the body and then they flow right out. They go over the heart mirror and they keep going. But sometimes that wind can get trapped in the body, and it's helping to free that. And that was like a light bulb moment for her when she heard that, because she was always taught as a child, you have to be strong, be tough, don't take on any emotion. And when she felt that, I could literally see her spirit lift. I mean, everything, her eyes started to glow, her skin started to glow. and she was having this chronic hip pain. And just that idea to say, oh, it's something that can just keep flowing and moving out, helped to resolve some of that hip pain, just that thought process. So, I mean, Matt, probably similar for you with yoga. I mean, same idea maybe, or?
Yeah, and described similarly, but and kind of tying back to how we began, that the idea of yoga continues to grow through science, reflects it back, and we go, oh, they knew what they were talking about. In that, before it was just like, well, I don't know why they're having their problems, they whatever. And now we have the science that says, oh no, it changes, literally it changes the genes, it changes the way the brain develops, the capacity for the nervous system to absorb additional things. We know now we know the effects. Again, that weave, when the insult comes somewhere in the weave, the whole system suffers. And so we look at now we know that there's, Gail Parker's book on racial trauma. So it goes from not just car accident abuse kind of things, but to all these things that CT was pointing to. And so the yoga asks us to partake in viveka, which is to discern, is it this, is it that, or not that, not that, not that, but the discernment of where's the real trauma coming from. And then the modalities of yoga have been demonstrated then to help stabilize the nervous system, to calm and build resilience is a word we hear a lot right now. But then again, that last weave out, and I think where we're headed to is that aspect of community. So I won't steal Kevin's thunder, but I think that's about where we're at.
I think that this is where we're all coming to, where we're all coming towards this central spoke, which is community. Claire, you mentioned this at the beginning. I'd love to hear you, Matt, and CT talk a little bit more about your perspectives on the role of our communities on healing. CT, let's start with you.
Yeah, I found it's kind of like a twofold situation, because there's a community of us practitioners, so to speak. I mean, I think that is huge. And like I was saying, it really is more and more happening globally, where there's these integrated clinics, people are working together, there's these cross referrals, all of that aspect. And Singing Dragon is so beautiful with this. I mean, Claire, I've got to thank you for when I first met you in Rothenburg and bringing me into this wonderful family, because not only has it been a way for me to understand more about what's going on in Chinese medicine, but other modalities as well, meet other practitioners. And it's been such a warm, loving community, which I'm very grateful for. So thank you for that. And then there's also the community of working in group settings. I mean, I've worked in several group settings doing acupuncture in clinics where people are sitting in chairs all together, and they're supporting each other, talking like, oh, come back next week, oh, it's great to see you again, how are you doing? And it becomes its own little community that way. Same thing with qigong. Doing qigong in a room with people is so powerful. I love it. I love when I get to go. I used to teach a qigong class here in Salem, Oregon, but I've been too busy. But it's just the power of everybody getting together and feeling that connection is huge. And even with drumming, when I do drumming, we do drum healing, where we're all in a circle and everybody has a drum and there's a person in the center receiving that drum healing. And the amount of change that can happen from a group setting is profound. And I know, Matt, I mean, yoga, of course, there's so much group setting there. You probably see similar things for
Come
you.
on, Matt. Let's hear all about it. But quickly, because we've got a lot of questions to come in our Q&A session.
You bet. So, as they say in the Native American tradition, it's all turtles up and down, right? And so, again, the yoga, the connection says, this thing I call me is 10% human DNA, and the other 90% is somebody else's DNA. We are not ourselves, right? So that's a tough one. But then when we go out, it also says my language is the broader community's language. My language drives my thinking, which, and so again, we're back to the weave in the community. And what we know about people that don't have meaning and purpose or spirit is they've been silenced. And I think that's to step right in briefly, right to Claire. that's what Singing Dragon's done. It's brought voices forward that need to be heard, that would be silenced by the big houses. And so I'll just stop short there and see if Claire's got anything to say.
Absolutely. Well,
oh, that's a perfect intro. Yeah, I mean, what I kind of see us as being part of the conversation that you're talking about. And we try to really sort of keep our ear to the ground and to seek out voices that can maybe take their professions forward, and we can help them by sharing their knowledge and raising their profile and creating professional literature for the subjects that we publish for. So another important aspect, I think, of community for us is that we really want to be as inclusive and accessible as we can. And part of that is about reflecting the audiences that we publish for, but it's also about expanding them. So we want to do that by championing diverse voices and social justice, but also through publishing our books and products in different formats to make them more accessible. So like the ebooks and the audio books that I mentioned, and we have them all available on our Singing Dragon library, which is our online platform, which I wanted to mention because that could be of interest to people. So yeah, I mean, I guess the most important thing for us is that we are listeners and readers ourselves, and that we want to be constantly learning and engaging in debate and asking questions. And we want to provide a space really for people to come together and to share. And that's, I think, like what today's really been about as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
one thing I did want to mention as well is that we're always really keen to hear from new voices and people who are keen to publish with us and who've got a book idea. So I think it's going to be posted in the chat how to contact us if you fancy speaking to us about publishing, or if you've got an idea. So that should be appearing in chat.
How exciting is that for all budding authors out there? Wonderful. Please do take this opportunity. And I think we can all say that this wonderful nurturing energy is really emanating from Singing Dragon. And that energy is nourishing the medicine of yoga and also Chinese medicine. So thank you, Singing Dragon, and happy birthday. It's now time for us to move on to our question and answer session. And we've got lots and lots and lots of questions. So we're going to have to be at our most eloquent and our most edited best, CT and Matt and Claire. Now, just before we come on to this, I'd like to let you know about our forthcoming event. It's on the 8th of July, and the focus is the power of touch. And this will feature Steve Haynes, Matt Erb, and Amy Wheeler. And if you'd like to secure the early bird rate of £10, please do follow that link in the chat. So now let's go into some of these questions, and I'll go through as many of these as possible. So a couple of questions here relating to accessibility of acupuncture and yoga. Acupuncture and yoga can be seen as something only accessible to the wealthy or to the privileged. What sort of advocacy do we need to be doing to enable more people to be having acupuncture? Matt Taylor, I understand that you've been doing quite a lot of work in this area.
Yes, that's right, Kevin. And I'm actually treasurer for the Accessible Yoga Association, which mission is dedicated to access, and access, as you rightly point out, so often it's the privileged, the relatively wealthy or whatever that have access to it. And so we look at that, and that's why I work with national policy and that, so that we bring in these things down to a level that can get access that way. But the other access is cultural awareness and sensitivity. Are these ancient works appropriate for the different audiences? Are they inclusive? Do they welcome in people of different gender preferences, orientation, ethnicity, all this beautiful weave of humanity, right? And so the mission of the Accessible Yoga is to enlighten the yoga community and give tools and ability to create places to receive this in a way that is much more accessible than what lately has been the case.
Thank you, Matt. Now, I'd like to pose a different question to you, CT, if I may. And this is from Rachel Edney. How can we best help people who are in chronic pain, something like fibromyalgia, when it feels like the pain is stopping that person from doing what it is that they love? They're not able to care for their grandchild. They can't play that instrument. They're unable to go walking. How can we start to unpick what might be underlying this on a psycho-spiritual level?
That's a great question. And I think that is something that we're working with, I mean, almost for everyone, where they come in and have different types of, debilitating pain or even just minor pain, it can stop them on their path. And so the first thing I would say that I do is when I see someone, I talk to them about their talents, their abilities. What, like Matt said, what do you do for fun? And help them to start to identify things that they can do that are going to help them to feel better. At the same time, using things like acupuncture, which can help to open up the flow, relieve the pain. I mean, fibromyalgia, acupuncture, that's one of the best modalities to treat is, acupuncture for fibromyalgia. So these kind of things. And then also, I really like to teach people about breathing, just doing simple breathing techniques where they breathe in the universal light energy with all their pores and their lungs, and then let the old energy go, and then breathe in the universal light energy again and start to see it gather in their lower abdomen, and to help build up their core energy, which will then help to move their energy to clear out pain. And that's a breathing technique I learned from Master Wu, but these kind of things I think can help, along with doing stretching or, lifestyle techniques, and also nutrition as well.
Thank you. Now, Charlotte Evans has posted a very interesting question. She works in addictions rehab, and she's also a yoga teacher. So this one is veering towards you, Matt. At the moment, they've got a client who has a serious spinal injury, which has led to a tramadol addiction. How do you start to use yoga therapy with such an underlying physical issue? Because her suffering and pain is very much based on a physical situation following an accident.
Right. And so the first thing, the opioids aren't bad, okay? They're just misused. So it isn't that we have to get rid of the tramadol. Some people are gonna have chronic pain, we know that. So the proper medication use is key, but the yoga is when that accident occurs, our story of who we are changes. So whatever we thought we were, now we have to write a new story. And the only way we can write that story is to reconnect back to our sensation, our breath, our environment, and begin to build a narrative that has meaning and purpose again. And so yoga starts with nonviolence, ahimsa. What are the things that are creating violence within my life? Maybe the person's overeating, or they're socially isolated, all those types of things. So we start to explore that. So we do that, as well as know that my friend Matt Sanford, famous yoga therapist, yoga teacher, who's a T4 quadriplegic or T4 paraplegic, says there's more right with me than there is wrong with me. Okay. Yes, that person has that, but there's, in any human condition, if the person's breathing, there's more right than wrong. And so beginning to shift that focus. So those are a couple of ways, Kevin, that we can begin to support that person. And then as CT mentions, that gets things flowing, and then the creative next level emerges without us necessarily making it happen, but holding that space for it to happen.
Holding that space for it to happen. Thank you. Now, Colette Armitage has a question that I think each of you might be able to shed some light. What would you recommend for an autistic person? Do you have any calming strategies? CT Holman.
Okay, and I'm not an expert treating autism, but I have had a few patients, and the space is such an important aspect. When someone comes in, how does a space present for the patient, no matter what's going on for them? and I think a calming atmosphere, and also a calming presence. And so, approaching someone, with this really aggressive way is going to be too much. So just kind of gently approaching. One thing that I found is, starting with the feet. If I was going to do acupuncture, for example, starting with the feet, it's the least vulnerable area. And so maybe just touching their feet that way, setting the stage, calming music. I do the drumming, and the drumming has been very helpful. It's not rock wild drumming. It's not like we're doing that. It's very soothing. So these kind of things, and then also talking about breath to help the person feel in their body and to have that connection. So that's a couple things I'm thinking of.
Thank you.
Yeah, and those would be the kind of things we'd build off in yoga. And again, what I'm learning in the accessible yoga is that there's this whole concept of neurodiversity. Okay, so because we don't fit into the round peg of the person that sits still, pays attention, and follows directions well of an industrial society, then we're not right. And in fact, many of the shamans and the healers were the people that didn't fit in, the people that have a way of seeing and being in the world differently than us. So there's also that societal labeling of attention deficit spectrum issues. So there are those techniques we can do, but being careful not to try and fit them into the right way of being, but can they celebrate and participate and have a way of interacting? Because so often those are the people that give insight to community or society too. So we want to be careful we don't fix what we really need to.
Thank you. Now, we've got 2 questions here and 9 minutes left. Gosh, doesn't time fly? Absolutely. Now, so Sarah Jones and Anka Amari, hopefully I pronounced your name correctly. Sarah Jones has posted into the Q&A box. Here in the UK, the pain management clinic via the NHS only offers 5 acupuncture sessions. I asked why they don't change this policy, and the answer was because patients won't swap their opioids for alternatives. Sarah Joyce also writes, I've fibromyalgia and a student acupuncturist, but without regular treatment, the pain can't be managed. How do we change this mindset? And I'd like you to keep that question resonating in your mind, because Anka Amari has a question relating to how we increase the synergies between yoga therapy and TCM and the medical world in countries where these concepts are only beginning. How can we build more alliances? And let's go to you first, Matt.
So to address Sarah's question, I would say that, again, a lot of this is national policy and policy driven by old mindsets of pain is a weakness, pain is a moral failing. It's very much a part of how pain's looked at and managed, unfortunately. And so to get more acupuncture is thought of as a waste or a non-productive use of energy and resources. So a lot of it is we need to become politically active, both in our local community and to let our leaders know that that's antiquated and not appropriate, because the countries that deal well with pain also have high levels of social support and reinforcement of care. To the other question about, from Romania, yes. There's an emergence. By emergence, we mean we don't know, okay? It's not CT and it's not me doing the work, but life is coming through all of us. So I would urge you to do your practice where you are, influence those that you can, and you don't know who's going to be the next person that's going to create that big change. And so in yoga, it's Arjuna whining to Krishna saying, I don't think I can do this. And Krishna says, pull the bow back and shoot the arrow. I'll take care of everything else. And so let's do our practice, and the larger part of what we are takes hold and drives that emergent properties.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Matt. And CT, from your perspective, please.
Well, I think that's like Matt was saying, do the practice. I mean, doing the practice is such a big part of helping to resolve your personal pain or issues that are happening, but also it sends out a message kind of on a global level to, get this energy moving forward. And, specifically in my clinic, I do try to teach people different things they can do to keep the acupuncture going. So they don't have to come every week for acupuncture. But certainly 5 visits a year is not enough, no matter what you're treating. And so, some of the organizations here in the United States, they are pushing for these things. They have more of the resources. Think like Matt said, just trying to be politically active. And the beauty is now we have the science. The science can support these ancient modalities to help, convince those people in power to say, hey, these actually do work. We can use this and that kind of thing. And so I would just say working on those levels would hopefully help get that momentum in that direction.
I had a conversation with John MacDonald, an acupuncturist based in Australia, 50 years, wonderful writer, wonderful teacher. And at the end of his conversation, I asked him, what is it that we should all be doing? And he said, talking about what it is that we do, letting other people know. That's the single most important thing. Now, I have a question for you, Claire, coming towards the end of our discussion. Now, we've been talking a lot today about all of these wonderful, wonderful ways of healing using yoga and Chinese medicine. From your position as a publisher, do you notice any other emerging trends in treatment and in practice to help with pain? And if you have noticed any, it'd be wonderful if you could share them with us, please.
That's an interesting one. I mean, I guess what's coming out as being really interesting for us is the sort of, as we've talked about, the connection between things. So we're finding a lot of the subject areas that we're publishing in, there's a lot more overlap with other areas and also with mainstream healthcare and integrative health. So I feel like the language that people are using is starting to become clearer, I think, so that different groups of people are starting to really understand concepts in their area that maybe have been described in a different way in another area and making those links. So we're really seeing, I think, a lot of areas kind of coming together more, and there's lots of interesting stuff happening around that, where that kind of meeting place is and can spin off into, different therapies. For example, aromatherapy. There could be some work we've been talking about in relation to pain and acupuncture, and suddenly that clicks with someone else who's been working with essential oils, for example, and that comes in together into the bigger picture. So yeah, it's kind of that circle thing I was talking about earlier.
We return to our circle, like all best things. We return to the source. Now, I have some news. I can't believe it myself, but we have actually come to the close of our very, very special event. I would love it if you could please join us at our next special event, which is on the 8th of July, The Power of Touch with Stephen Haynes, Matt Erb, and Amy Wheeler. I would now like to say a very big thank you to Claire Wilson. Thank you so much for hosting us today and for having us. C.T. Holman, your generosity of spirit, we salute you. It's been absolutely wonderful. And I know that you've had a very, very busy clinic today. You've probably got a line of patients outside your room, and we really appreciate you taking the time to come and spend it with us today.
Thank you so much, Kevin. Yeah, thank you.
And Matt Taylor, brilliant, a bubbling source of joy. Thank you very much. It's been absolutely fascinating. It's been really wonderful to be touched by your wisdom today. I would like to say thank you. I would also like to say a very big thank you to everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today, for all of your wonderful questions, for joining us from all around the world, and for helping us to build up and to start the process of building up a really, really gorgeous community. Okay, I'm going to become a little bit soppy now. Even though this event has been a virtual event, the love and the energy in this global room has been absolutely real. And I thank you so much for that. Looking forward to seeing you in July. Lots of love to you all. Stay well and farewell. Goodbye. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.